Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Please let me know in the comments where you guys are tuning in from, what state, what county, what country. Let's get the chat going here. And I see we've got 300-400 people watching. Everyone is slowly milling in, so please remember to press the thumbs up or the like button. It helps the channel, it helps the video, and do share. Here we go. So we got Sudan, New Zealand. Incidentally, Sudan, we're about to get into it. Sudan, New Zealand, Ireland, Canada. There's multiple people from Canada. So New York City, Iowa, Oregon, New Jersey, Eritrea, Australia, Maine, Egypt, Somalia, Delaware, United States, Michigan, wonderful, Belfast. That's great. That's really great. Shout out to all of you guys. Shout out to all of you. So let's get right into it, shall we? Let's break down what's going on in Sudan for you, because this is a very complicated situation. So I told you last time that when I go live, I'm going to do a proper video for a proper breakdown of it for you. I didn't want to do it last minute, the previous live stream. So now's the time. Give me 1 second. Okay, great. Right, so let's discuss what's happening in Sudan. Again, just for purely for background info, for those of you who really need a primer on this, Sudan is, well, actually, before they split it into South Sudan, it was the largest country in the Arab League and the largest country in Africa. Now, Algeria holds that place, but this is Sudan. Sudan's a crucial, country because it's located in what's known as the Horn of Africa. It borders Egypt, Libya, Chad, what's now South Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and it's on the Red Sea. The Red Sea is very, very important. We'll come back to that in a moment. So who's fighting? Well, you have on the left the head of the Sudanese armed forces. So this is a regular army. Okay, the regular army. That's Burhan. And the one on the right is Dore, and he is the head of the RSF, the Rapid Strike Forces. Okay, so we'll just call them RSF for short. In Arabic, you would call them Quwat Da'am Syria. And to put this in a nutshell, it's his private army, right? So Dore, he came from very humble. He has a very humble background, and he rose up to become this very, very important businessman, trading in gold and everything. And he's very rich, right? So with that money, he's bought himself an entire army, essentially, around 100,000. So what you have right now is a power struggle. This is what's going on, because to give you the history, Sudan is in a very precarious situation right now. It's very unstable. There's no government. There's no parliament. And they had a coup in 2019 against Bashir. Okay, so Bashir was the president until 2019, and then there was a coup against him. Then you had another coup in 2021, and they teamed up together, actually. So the guys that are fighting now on the screen, you can see on the left, Burhan, again with the army, and on the right, Dore with the RSF. They were friends, right? They were, or bedfellows, let's say, until just a few days ago. These guys were working together, and they worked together to overthrow, the process in 2021 and take power, right? So they took power, and for the last 2 years, they've essentially been hashing out how Sudan will transform from military rulership to a civilian administration. Okay, so to in a nutshell, the idea was that the RSF, so the Rapid Strike Forces, this paramilitary group that belongs to Dore on the right, would be integrated into the Sudanese armed forces. Okay, so they would become part of the regular army. So you would have one thing that instead of having a paramilitary force on the side, right? And to do all of this, to do this transition, they basically have a Sudanese national council, and you had 5 people from the armed forces, from the army, so from Burhan's side on the left, and then 5 people from the RSF, and 1 civilian. Now, this 1 civilian didn't have a good time. He got fired, then they brought him back, and then he resigned himself. I think it was earlier this year. So, earlier last year. So 2022, early 22, he resigned, and it's not going too well. But the idea was that we have a council, and we're going to use this to have people from both sides and talk this out, and that's how it's going to go. Now, the thing is that the army was saying, well, this whole process should take 2 years, right? Like to take the RSF and put them in with the army, it should take 2 years. And Dagalo is not happy with this, right? So he starts saying that it's going to take 10 years. So he doesn't want to play ball, essentially. And before I go any further, I just wanted to show you this short paragraph. This is not a new article, mind you. This is, I think, from 2019 from the BBC, and they kind of outline what I just told you about Dagalo. You might be confused because here they refer to him as Hemeti. It's the same person, right? He just by 2 names, right? So Hemeti or Dagalo. And they say that in 2003, as the Darfur rebellion began to gather momentum, Dagalo helped mobilize clansmen to fight alongside the government forces, okay? And that earned him the support of President Bashir. He became leader of the border guards, which was a bunch of militias supporting the government. And then in 2013, we have the RSF created. So that's the current group that's fighting with this against the Sudanese army. You can see it's a very complex situation because they're both arms of the government, essentially, right? You have the military, and then you have this paramilitary force doing basically bringing all the clansmen militias together. That was something that Bashir had tasked Dagalo with, because the guy's a businessman, right? As I told you. He knows through his business with neighboring countries, he's developed relations and a reputation, and he has the money, frankly, to recruit an army and bring people together. And so, that's why Bashir tasked him with this. And, the goal was that they would help regular forces fight rebels in Darfur, as they say here in this article. And then a year later, so in 2014, the RSF is recognized by the government as a regular force. And nevertheless, even though it's sanctioned by the government and it's doing things for the government, at one point, Dagalo turns against Bashir, and he's like, you're on your own. And he sides with the people, right? And so the military and the people, everyone, they oust Bashir. He's gone. And then there's uncertainty, and basically these 2 guys over here are having now their own power struggle, right? So it's a very complex situation. And by the way, the council that I mentioned, this transitional council, Burhan on the left is not only the head of the Sudanese armed forces, he's the head of this transitional council, and his deputy is Dagalo on the right. So now he's at war with his deputy, you understand? And again, this guy, we're not talking about small fries here. This guy has 100,000 people, at his disposal that answer to him, not to Sudan or the people of Sudan. They're his forces. So if you go and you look at estimates of the Sudanese army, I think you'll find a roughly equivalent number to that. It's 100,000 or 125,000. These are we're not talking about small fries, okay? So just to bring you up to date, I mean, it obviously this is taking a toll on people in the capital, in Khartoum. I think you have about 180 dead. The number keeps changing, obviously. I think it's 180 dead down, and there's no electricity. Some people have no electricity or water since 3 days. Save the Children, which is one of these NGOs or aid agencies operating in Sudan, I think their offices were raided. So the people who depend on that agency, they're out of luck. Hospitals, anything that depends on either an NGO, foreign aid, or the government running things, they're out of luck. And here's some clips of fighting. I might as well show them to you. I mean, it's nothing that special, right? It's just shaky footage. It's actually the same clip I just showed you. Yes. What's interesting is that when it comes to the RSF, actually, just 1 second before I continue, I just want to show you this very quickly over here. You can see what I just told you, that the RSF wanted to delay the integration for 10 years, but the army said it should happen in 2 years. Yeah, I mean, I think what's going on here, well, it's rather clear, and it's out. You can see it, out in the open. Dagalo got the feeling that once the RSF are integrated into the Sudanese armed forces, that he's basically going to be eliminated. Now, when I say eliminated, I'm not saying that, like mafia style. I mean, maybe, but essentially that his power is being taken away, right? Right now, this guy is not only rich, he's not only a well-connected businessman, he has a private army. So, for him, his point of view is, why should I give this up? Why should I? Right? Who's going to stop me? You want to stop me? Try. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to Burhan, this guy is the head of the council, the transitional council, and he's also the head of the armed forces, the Sudanese armed forces, who have, a mandate to protect the people of Sudan. So if legally speaking and rationally speaking, he's the one who should be integrating the RSF into the Sudanese armed forces, and he's in charge. That's the way it is, right? You can't have a private militia running around Sudan demanding things. It has to be the regular army. So I think what's going on here is that, like I said, Dagalo had the impression that his power was being taken away, and to a certain extent, he's right. But then again, they agreed that you have to transition, have to have this transition and integrate the RSF. And by the way, they laid their roadmap for this was that Dagalo would not be able to recruit anymore, because you have to think this private army of his had gone from 40,000 to 100,000. It's not, like I said, this is no joke. So they agreed, no more recruitment. Okay, that was part of the roadmap. No more recruitment to the RSF. That the ranks that people currently held would be kept. So if you're a lieutenant, you stay a lieutenant. If you're a corporal, you stay a corporal, etc. And that those who wish to depart or don't wish to comply or whatever, that they will deal with them later. Okay, so these were the 3 conditions of this integration, of this transition. But like it says here, and like I told you, RSF delayed. They said no, this is going to take 10 years and etc. So now they're fighting, and you have to ask yourself, who does this benefit? Who does this benefit? Well, you see, I'm just saying, 2 months ago, both the RSF and the army gave Russia the okay to build a military base, a naval base in Sudan, at Port Sudan on the Red Sea. Now, let's be clear. These guys are at each other's throats. All right? There's a power struggle going on here. But who sets to who is set to gain from all this when these two guys start fighting? Because you have to understand something. When they agreed to let Russia build a port, it still has to be ratified by a civilian government. Okay, so you can see here, this is from ABC News. This is 2 months ago, right? February 11th, 2023. You've got Lavrov over here. And they say Sudan's ruling military concluded a review of an agreement with Russia to build a Navy base on the Red Sea. They said the deal was awaiting the formation of a civilian government and a legislative body to be ratified before it takes effect. Okay? So one official said that they cleared all our concerns and the deal has become okay from the military side. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also said Thursday the deal still needs ratification by Sudan's yet-to-be-formed legislative body. So everybody's clear here. Just because the military and the RSF said okay, that doesn't mean Russia can build a base. They still have to wait for the transition. The transition has to take place. But now, because of the fighting, the transition's delayed. There is no base. There will be no Russian base until that transition takes effect, right? So even if tomorrow morning you have a ceasefire, who the hell knows how long it's going to take these guys to hash things out and get everybody back, to sit at the table. And this is not a joke, diplomacy and making it, and peace talks. It's very, very difficult. And these guys they're already at each other's throats, right? So you can see from this agreement that Russia would be allowed to set up a naval base with up to 300 Russian troops and to simultaneously keep up to 4 Navy ships, including nuclear-powered ones. And in exchange, Russia would provide Sudan with weapons and military equipment. This agreement would last for 25 years and then automatically be extended for 10 years if neither side objects. So you can see down here, Dagalo, commander of the RSF, held talks the previous February, so that's February 2022. Dagalo had held talks with senior Russian officials in Moscow, and then upon returning from his trip, he said that the country does not have any objections to Russia or any other country establishing a base on their territory, as it poses no threat to Sudan's national security. And if any country wants to open a base, and it is in Sudan's interests and doesn't threaten our national security, we have no problem dealing with anyone, Russian or otherwise. So why is this important? Because you can see from both sides, from Burhan, from the military, and from Dagalo, the RSF. So both, again, just to be clear, both of these guys, they are both fine with Russia building the base, but they have to get the transition over with and form a civilian government and hand the keys over to a proper government and a legislative body and all this stuff. And it's not happening now. It's not going to happen because now there's a war. These guys are fighting. So who benefits from this? Just ask yourself this question. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. All right? I'm just saying. Now, again, let me, why did I show you this map? This is not to give you guys basic geography classes. You should do that on your own time. But you have to remember, this is the Red Sea we're talking about. The Red Sea. This place right here. This is not just, a nice place to sail your boat. This is the most vital shipping lane on the planet. On the planet. This is all the trade, all the commercial ships, everything that matters comes through the Red Sea. Anything that matters comes through the Red Sea. Right? Remember, Israel and France and Britain went to war. They went to war with Egypt over the Suez Canal. This is no joke, okay? Because it's a vital shipping lane. It's the quintessential shipping lane. And everyone wants to have a foothold here. All right? So it's not, it's not just about commerce. It's about having being able to protect your own and also have influence in the region. Mind you, the Iranians, how long have we talked about the secret tanker war on this channel, right? I've done so much reporting on the tanker war between Iran and Israel. So Iran would send fuel to Syrian civilians who are being crushed by sanctions. Oh my God, what a crime. And the Israelis would just sink it, screw you, because that's what they do. And then the Iranians would hit an Israeli-owned ship, as a response. Like, okay, you want to do this, we can do this. And it goes back and forth, and, it doesn't really accomplish anything, but it's there, it's happening. And you've got the Strait of Hormuz, which is also important. You've got the war in Yemen. Again, Yemen. The Horn of Africa and Arabia, this entire section right here. Why do you think everybody is trying to gain a foothold there? Now, the thing that upsets me is that, look, the Russians and the Chinese, how many military bases do they have? You can count them on both your hands, right? Nothing. The Americans have 800. Africa has 54 countries, and in 50 of those countries, the Americans have military attaches, right? They've got they're not just sending normal diplomats; they're military attaches, and they've got a huge drone base in Niger that I think most Americans don't even know they've paid for, right? And the Americans, for how long have they messed with Somalia? They've destroyed that country, massacred the civilians in that country, wrecked it, blown it to pieces, right? Somalia. Who has a big giant base in Djibouti? The Americans. Who funded the war? Who made a profit from the war in Yemen and armed the Saudis? The Americans. Who is messing with the entire Horn of Africa since several decades? The Americans. And so the thing is that because the Americans do it, the Chinese and the Russians are looking at it, if we don't do anything, we're going to get screwed. And so now the Russians have to go and put a base on the Red Sea. Now you have somebody else, planting their feet there. And then the Chinese are probably going to do the same. I mean, you remember we were talking about this where was it again? Blimey, I reported about this. You remember was it the Solomon Islands? Where the Chinese wanted to put a base and then they got very angry. The Americans got very angry and they sent a delegation and everybody got their panties in a twist because of it. Yeah, I think it was the Solomon Islands. Yeah, it was. So you see the Americans doing this has provoked the Russians and Chinese into doing the same. And by the way, the Russians have a base in Syria, in Tartus, but a very, very old base since the 70s. But because, Syria was being hit by all these various countries, the UK, the US, France, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Russia was dragged into that war. And as a result, it's quite ironic because you'll hear them complain about, the Russians in Syria, the Iranians in Syria, who have the right to be there because they've been given official an official mandate by the Syrian government, by the way, unlike everyone I just listed. The Russian base, which was crumbling, this base that's been there since the 70s, since 71, 73, was upgraded to become a state-of-the-art naval base. So all you've done, if you're so concerned about the Russians and Iranians, all you've done is increase an Iranian and Russian presence in Syria, not because they really want to be there. Remember, they're sending their own kids to die to protect Syria, and bless them for that, but because you are forcing them into the situation, right? You are creating this war, and they are protecting this country because Iran, because Syria is nearby, and they already saw what happened to Iraq, and the Russians because they're a longtime ally of Syria, right? So my point here is that going back to Sudan. Sudan is in the Horn of Africa, and the Americans have been wreaking havoc on this region for decades now, right? And for what? What the Chinese and the Russians are guilty of in Sudan is making agreements, not for a naval port or naval base, but basically going around African countries, or if we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, we're talking about, 120 countries now that have signed up, and making deals with them, right? So instead of invading their countries and stealing their oil, they respectfully make agreements and talk it out. Now, in the case of Sudan, the Russians are exchanging weapons for a naval base, right? But they have said we will not go ahead until the people of Sudan have formed a government. So only once they respect the process and they're ready to wait. They don't invade the country, put their soldiers there, and just say, screw you, we're building the base. You see the difference? And forget the military aspect. From an economic side, there's gold, there's uranium. China and Russia, yeah, they're interested in mining in Sudan. And you know, you'll have these hit pieces and smear pieces that they do in the media about that, because they don't want to see China building infrastructure in Africa and getting something in exchange for it and doing that respectfully or agreeing to it. No, it's China this and Russia that and so on. Right. So I just wanted to briefly mention that, you know, because China and Russia are interested in the country, I wouldn't put it past their enemies to start poisoning the well and making things worse. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case here. But, you know, Sudan, you have to consider, it's already been carved up into two pieces. So now you have Sudan and you have South Sudan. It's already two pieces, right? And what's going to happen now? Are you going to have a third Sudan, one that's controlled by the RSF and one that's controlled by the Sudanese armed forces? This is sad. You know, it's sad because you see the people or the country split into and fractured, and this is balkanizing, as it's called, right? It's a typical divide and conquer that you see that's been carried out, you know, for centuries by European countries. They go to other continents and they balkanize them, and they have different ways of doing it. And they don't do it out in the open necessarily. They don't always show their hand. You understand? So I hope Sudan does not get plunged into something even worse, because, you know, like many other African countries, Sudan suffered from colonialism, and as you know, this impedes a country's development. This is not something. It's not something like, oh well, you know, Britain is just going to leave Sudan, so now Sudan will rise up and suddenly get all of the wealth back, and all of, you know, everything is undone just like that. It doesn't work that way. It's so easy to just pack up and go and leave the mess for someone else to clean up. It's too easy, right? But here, that's the situation. So this is what's going on in Sudan. This is a power struggle. Dagalo, head of the RSF on the right, and Burhan, head of the armed forces on the left. And God knows, God knows what, you know, what, you know, there was a cutoff date in the last couple of days, but for a long time he's been saying, no, I need 10 years and so on. But God knows what made, you know, this whole situation explode in the last couple of days. Because you should always ask yourself who stands to gain from the situation, and then you'll see things more clearly, with more clarity. So let me talk to you about this Kara Murza, the Russian, in just a second. All right, just give me 1 second to pull this up, and we'll discuss his sentencing and what happened today in Moscow. Okay, just give me a moment. And thank you to David for the super chat. I appreciate it very much. And you know, it's I hope I was able to explain that clearly enough, because Christ, I mean, the way, you know, Western media usually do things, they do such a sloppy goddamn job of everything. You know they're gonna butcher it. Don't even bother going to them. Okay, you guys know everything international. This is the spot. All right, I've got you covered. Don't worry about it. Just give me a second, guys. I want to read your super chats or whatever it is. It's not loading, so just give me a second. I'm gonna go to that, and then we'll talk about Kara Murza. 1 moment. So we've got one here from Glitch in the Matrix, and Glitch in the Matrix says that on this night of possibly Laylatul Qadr, I want to bless you with a little donation. Well, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Richard Medhurst speaks the truth and doesn't shy away from exposing tyrants' lies. Video on Axis of Resistance was super strong. Peace. Which video? Nah, seriously, thank you very much. That makes me very happy, and you know, I'm wishing all of the Muslims watching a happy Laylatul Qadr, and thank you very much. we also got something from Peter. Peter saying, "Sweet home Alabama, shukran katir, mate." You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Mahmoud says, "Chat GPT just told me that Assad gassed his own people." Of course it did. Of course it did. For there's not a lot of intelligence in that artificial intelligence, is there? Christ. For all it's hyped up to be, and I know it's very complex. I'm just kidding, but they just, it's so disappointing, right? They just, most of the time, I saw them doing this already with Trump. But the thing is, I don't care about Trump, right? I mean, no one likes Trump. Trump's a criminal. He basically started a war with Iran. Or he committed an act, he basically, he carried out an act of war, and it's because of Iran that there was no war in the end. He's starving people in Syria with the sanctions. He's a criminal. He in the Blackwater ones that he freed, and the case against Assange, he's a straight up criminal. Nevertheless, on ChatGPT, I saw them trying to censor the sources of information that it could read, and so that basically they could control its opinion on Trump or something like that. I mean, the same thing is happening with from what you've just told me about Syria, of course, right? So anything that debunks or says something to the incidentally, I mentioned Assange. WikiLeaks is the one that exposed the gassing charade in Duma. So it's what really bothers me is that if you want to criticize the Syrian government or Bashar al-Assad or Rami Makhlouf, then criticize them, but don't make up fairy tales. Why do you make up fairy tales? You can say so many things that are actually true without making up these fairy tales. Like the lengths they go to just to cling on to this goddamn gas thing. What does that mean? Like, so if he didn't gas people like you're saying, everything was fine? Why don't you stick to things that are actually real instead of making them up? Like we're supposed to believe that this guy, he's such a, he's so evil and his tactics are so big that he wants to bring Iran and Russia to crush a rebellion. But then he goes and uses chemical weapons that have been removed by Russia and the US already to kill 50 civilians. Well, what a strategist. I mean, what is the military or strategic value in that? This guy's an idiot, according to this, and then he's also an evil genius at the same time, according to the opposition. Which one is it? Make up your goddamn minds. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but it's really insane. Freelance photographer, thank you very much. I appreciate the donation, and thank you to everyone who's joined on YouTube as a member, because Claudia worked hard on these new emojis so she could give them to you. Kenneth says in the comment section, for Bashar to survive all the attempts on his life and still be president says a lot. Yeah, this is something this is a point that I've tried to make before, is that, listen, man, if the United States want to get rid of you, and the UK and Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Israel, and the list is very long. I haven't even said Al Qaeda and ISIS yet. And you're still there. Man, there's a meme, something like, you can't Mossad the Assad, right? I guess we'll leave it at that. Let me move on to the news. Okay, let me get to the news. So about from Moscow, about Kara Murza and what happened there. I'll try and break this down for you. So just give me a second. I'm just bringing up his photograph on the screen so you can try and see who I'm talking about, for those of you who are not familiar. And there, can you guys see that? Okay, great. So let's get started with it. Yep. Oh, before I go, Charles says, why do you support Assad, coming from a guy ignorant on Middle East politics? Well, it's not a question of supporting Assad. I support Syria, and Syria is being trampled on, and they make it out to be like it's they reduce the entire country to one name or one guy. It's very childish, Oh, it's Assad. No, not really, because the sanctions on Assad, they don't touch this guy. They touch the civilian population. The currency is down the drain. And the terrorists that they set loose, Al Qaeda, and then trying to prop up Jolani, who's now the head of what is basically Al Qaeda in Syria, HTS, and Turkey coming in and snatching land from Syria. I mean, so remember, Turkey is not just Turkey; it's a NATO member state. So it's a NATO country occupying Idlib, and then another NATO country, the United States, occupying 1/3 of Syria. What the hell are they doing there? What does stealing oil have to do with helping Syria? There's nothing to do with Assad. It's about power and control. And then you've got, remember, Israel occupying the Golan Heights to the south. So basically, you got Syria chopped up into like 4 parts. It's actually more if you take into account Al Tanaf and the U.S. air base. Yes, they have an air base there as well. It's all a lie. It's a lie. And the thing about the gassing, it's another lie that they don't listen to their own scientists and at the OPCW. So, like I said, if you want to criticize, you can bring up real criticisms, but they always lie in the media. They say, oh, well, he gassed his own people. Clearly not. What else are they lying about? Ask yourself. And the sanctions, which they whitewash and they make you think, oh, the sanctions. I'm literally about to talk. We're literally about to talk about sanctions. I was going to get to the Magnitsky Act and the lie and that they feed you about how the sanctions are about targeting individuals. No, it's not. That's not the reality. Maybe in their fairy tale, but so there you go. And I hope that satisfies. I hope that satisfies your curiosity. And if not, I'll give you some more wisdom after we're done with Kara Murza. So let me break this down. 1 second. So I just wanted to discuss the sentencing of Kara Murza. So he's basically he's a Russian and a British citizen, and he was handed a 25-year sentence this morning in a courtroom in Moscow. And the entire Western press, you can pick anything you like, BBC, Sky News, Reuters, they're all they've all made this guy front page news. And so let me just read to you from Politico a little bit about his case, and then we'll discuss. Okay, so they're saying that Moscow City Court sentenced Kara Murza to a penal colony for spreading quote unquote fake news about the army, so the Russian army, and quote-unquote cooperation with an undesirable organization as Russian President Vladimir Putin steps up his crackdown on dissent in Russian civil society. Right, you got to put the villain in there, right? Insert the villain into the sentence. But the bulk of Kara Murza's sentence had to do with a third charge, treason. In the first time anyone has been convicted on that count for making public statements containing publicly available information. So basically, they're pointing to a couple of speeches that he's given. I think it was in the United States and a couple of other countries, right? Western countries, where he went and accused the Russian military of committing war crimes. I think he said they used cluster bombs in one instance on residential areas, and he said that they're bombing maternity hospitals. And, I mean, the British ambassador and the American ambassador to Russia, they're completely outraged about this, right? So they've come out and they've said on the steps of the court, right outside the court, that here the British ambassador said that it's shocking, and the American ambassador said that this verdict was basically an attempt to try and silence the guy, right, and silence dissent in the country. If you look at the website of the FCO, right, and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, they've condemned it and summoned the Russian ambassador to the UK, right? And they've given him a lecturing. Just a second. I believe you guys were saying in the comments that I was out of focus. I hope that's better. So let me just go back to what I was saying. So basically, the Russians are very upset with the speeches he's given, right? They've used that as evidence against him of, you know, slandering the Russian military and so on, and saying that this isn't what he's saying about these, you know, dropping cluster bombs and all this. It's not an official policy. And you know, Russia is not committing war crimes and so on. Now, look, well, I'll give you my 2 cents in a second, right? The other thing that they're very upset with, I think, is hold on, where's the Politico piece? There we go. Here. So they're saying in Politico that you know, he's a close associate of other Putin opponents, right? And over the years, Kara Murza has ruffled many feathers as a main advocate of the Magnitsky Act, which long before the war called upon countries to target Russians involved in human rights violations and corruption. The defense's attempts, so his attempts to remove the judge, who was also on the Magnitsky list, were dismissed. And they talk about how journalists and diplomats and so on were treated at the courtroom, which is a point I'll get to in a second. But let's address what they've accused him of and convicted him of. Now, look, the thing about war crimes, everyone is committing war crimes in Ukraine. That's the sad reality of the war. The Russians, the Ukrainians, and all the NATO countries sending their troops there in special forces in secret, you know, Britain, they're all committing war crimes. And this is an unfortunate truth of war. And it doesn't mean, well, you know, that's just how it is. So get on with it. No. This means you shouldn't let the war happen in the first place. And that's you know, that's why it was important to actually engage in diplomacy with Russia before the whole goddamn thing exploded, before this situation escalated, which they, you know, the West, as you remember, they told them, go screw yourselves. You know, they weren't interested. You know, any sort of attempt to talk about or discuss NATO deployments on Russia's border, not Ukraine, on Russia's border, they didn't want to hear it. You know, they just wouldn't hear it. So the other point about you know, treason. Let me say something, because I actually I heard from a Russian lady today. Well, she basically called this guy a traitor as soon as the name was brought up, right? And a devil and so on, right? And that I mean, obviously you're gonna have people with different opinions in Russia, so you know, take that anecdotal thing for you know, at face with a pinch of salt and at face value. Let's talk about Magnitsky Act, because this guy, he's gone around the West and promoted this, and it's become a tool. It's basically part of the Treasury's Swiss Army knife of attacking countries with sanctions. And you can literally go on the website, you know, and of the State Department, and look at the Global Magnitsky Act, and look at all of these, you know, various countries, and you know, it's not just about tackling corruption in Russia. They've used this thing against China, against you name it, right? Ethiopia, you know, it's basically their domestic, because remember, U.S. sanctions under international law are illegal, and they are, you know, I've interviewed the United Nations Special Rapporteur on sanctions. They're a crime, not just under international law, but the United Nations condemns them. They're invalid, they're null and void, and they only hurt people, and never the people targeted. Here, you can look, Cuban officials, you know, you name it, everything's on here, Syria, etc. So you know, this guy has been a key proponent of the Magnitsky Act and everything it entails. Now, would I have given him 25 years? Of course not. You know, I still think this is a harsh sentence, and again, there might be people who dislike him who would disagree and so on. Fine, but I think this is still cruel. I don't know what his age is. He's in his early 40s, I think. So, you know, 25 years, he's basically going to die in prison, you know, practically. It's a life sentence. Let me go back to the Politico article and look what they say here. They say neither journalists nor high-ranking diplomats were allowed into the courtroom to witness the ruling and instead followed the sentencing on a screen. Yeah, when I was covering the Assange thing, guess what? It's the same thing. The guy is literally on the other side of the wall, but we're not allowed in. You know, they do this on purpose, right? To isolate you. So you're sitting in the dock, and they get you. I think you get 3 or 4 family members who can come in. No journalists allowed. No diplomats allowed. You have to sit in the next room watching on a screen, right? Watching on a screen, just like they mentioned. And that's also limited to 5 people. Dude, I'm telling you, they did everything they could. And again, I don't disrespect the people doing their jobs and everything, but I got the impression, and others might, you know, will echo my sentiment, that, you know, they didn't really want us there. Okay, I hope I'm wrong, but you know, I know the judge at one point, you know, refused to have any of this broadcast, and limit, and on the start of at the start of the trial. You know, you had like 40 observers from all these groups, you know, Reporters Without Borders, all the, you know, the NGOs that actually cared to show up, that had their access refused, or rather denied at the last second, the day you know, it started. And there were also, I think, MEPs, so members of the European Parliament, so on, they were also blocked from going in. Where was your reporting on this in Politico? Why don't you report about that in Politico? About all the people who were blocked and how difficult it was to cover the Assange thing, to get in. You know, the activists had to line up at like 5 a.m. so that journalists like myself could actually get in the courtroom and cover it. That's hard work, man. That's a lot of people, you know, who are owed a debt of gratitude, who did that, who did the work, who came out there from all over Europe, you know, not just local activists. So why don't any of these papers talk about that? And sorry, no, you know, no disrespect to Kara Murza, but that case is infinitely more important, and it's in London, right? So this is a supposed democracy, right? The UK, Russia's corrupt and shitty and all these bad things, right? But we're perfect. So shouldn't it be a much more grave that this happens in the UK? Shouldn't it be a much more offensive thing and an affront on democracy when it happens in London? Apparently not. Nobody cares. No, you know, every single press outlet, the Washington Post, Reuters, I've read everything that's been put out today from the State Department, from the FCO, from the United Nations. They all talk about how you know, all the journalists and the things had to watch from a screen next door. Where were you when this was happening to Assange? Where were you? Why did you say nothing about that? And the next point, they say here that Kara Murza was in a glass cage. Yeah, Assange too. Did you say that as well? Again, where were you? Where were you? They put that guy in a glass cage too. And I was outraged about that too, as was everybody else who was in the room or watching next door, right? Man, this is funny. This is really funny because they give you all these details, like, to get you riled up and emotional and angry at how, you know, barbaric the Russians are, keeping this man in a cage. No one's allowed to sit. This is normal. This is normal in the US and the UK. We do this professionally. We invented this stuff, man. We invented this stuff. The United States has 25% of the planet's prisoners. It's a business to have prisoners there. Many of them political too. Black Panther Party. You know, anybody who's attacked by the FBI during the COINTEL probe. Tons of people, man, that were, you know, basically unwanted by the state, just chucked into prison. And they're still doing it now. They're still doing it in your name. Where were you? So let's go back to what he's been charged with, this treason. Let me try and offer. Again, I still think this is a harsh sentence. This guy's still a human being. I can't imagine, putting someone in 25 years. We're not. If the guy murdered people in the street, I don't think he would get 25 years. So, you can't deny that this is very, very, drastic. You can't deny that. But I just want to say something because, this guy, I mean, he's going around and basically pleading other countries to put Russian officials on a sanctions list, and he accomplished that. They're literally telling you in the articles that the judge in his case is on that list. Yeah, but you put him on that list. You wanted him on this list of sanctions. It's not the other way around, right? So who started this act of, I'm going to go and make sure that Russian judges and Russian officials have their assets seized and are put on travel ban lists in Europe, in the United States? This guy's going around. That's not journalism. That's not activism. You're going around and basically like openly trying to provoke the Russian officials. Now, again, I don't agree with the sentence. I think 25 years is way too harsh. That's unimaginable. But my point here is that even if you agree with what he does, like you think that's fine that he's saying Russian officials should be put on sanctions lists and so on. Okay, fine. Russian judges are corrupt and they need to be dealt with. Fine. Okay, let's say everything that he's doing is correct. The sanctions don't hit the judges. You guys know this, that sanctions hurt the population. How many times have I said this sentence to you? How many times have I made this point to you? Sanctions don't work. Sanctions are illegal, right? Unilateral sanctions, because that's what we're talking about here. They're definitely not from the UN, right? And even the UN, you saw what they did to Iraq. Those US who orchestrated that. But the sanctions hurt the whole population. So when this guy is going around and saying, yes, we need to we combat corruption, which sounds lovely, right? And we need to fight, people who abuse their power. And it sounds great. We need to put these guys now. We need to put all this list of people that he's going around. He's saying exactly like this guy and that guy. Like he's naming them and saying, put them on the list. Put them on the list. Go on, sanction them. Take their stuff. They're not punishing those guys. They're punishing the whole country because sanctions. Basically, if these Russian officials are sanctioned, other countries will be punished for doing trade or engaging in any capacity with those Russian officials. So who suffers then when these Russian officials, whoever they are, whether it's Putin, whether it's, it doesn't matter. They're running this department, that department. Who suffers when those people can't do their work? The people in that country suffer. You literally seen that a million times. I don't need to explain this to you. Go look at Syria. Go look at Afghanistan. Go look at Somalia. Go look at Afghanistan. The $7 billion they stole from them. Right? Who's starving right now? Who needs that money? We occupied them for 20 years and then still steal their money. Jesus, I've never heard of such thievery. Jesus. And then the sanctions on Iraq that I mentioned a few minutes ago. 500,000 children killed. Sanctions don't work. So they're selling you a fairy tale. This guy is selling himself and other people a fairy tale. Sanctions do not work. All right? They don't work. And you are hurting your own country. So I'm not Russian. I'm not going to speak for the Russians. But if that guy, he's trying to put British officials on a sanctions list, and then, he's causing people in the UK to suffer or people in Syria to suffer. Yeah, I would feel that that's treasonous because it's not about fighting corruption. You're punishing the whole country, the entire civilian population, just to prove a point. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I'm not saying that the stuff is, quarter century, man. That's cruel. That's cruel. You can't deny it's cruel. But I just wanted to make this point because they're talking in the press, in the Western press today, about how this is such a good thing that he's done. Like they're trying to portray not his journalism, because they say he's a journalist and a politician, and I'm not talking about that or challenging that, but they're praising him precisely on this point about the Magnitsky Act and that he's gone around and sold this and been a huge proponent. And I think that's despicable because sanctions and the Magnitsky Act hurt civilians. They don't hurt the people that you named on the list, and you should know that. You should know better, man. I can't believe that he doesn't know this. He must know this. If I know this, and I'm telling you guys this, and you can see this for yourselves, and anyone can look this up and just see this for what it is, how does he not know this? Does that mean he deserves 25 years in prison? No, I don't think so. I'm sorry. This guy's not a serial killer. I would not give him 25 years. And I think that's cruel. But I'm not gonna sit here and agree with the State Department and tell you, oh, this is his sanctions are really great and you should put people on lists and then steal it. No, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. Let me tell you something. The British and the American ambassadors came to this guy's court sentencing, to his sentencing this morning. Where was the Australian ambassador or the American ambassador at Assange's thing? I mean, the United States is trying to get him. So forget I said the American ambassador. Where's his own ambassador, his own Australian ambassador? That guy posted a picture of himself wearing CIA cufflinks. He was showing them off as a gift. Like, hi, look who owns me. Wow. Let me leave it at that. And one last point that I would add, because I covered the swap between the United States and Russia with Yaroshenko and Brittany Griner. So I also told you about Brittany Griner. I think that's cruel that the Russians gave her, 11 years for by mistake bringing resin or whatever it was, hash with her. Come on, man, no, that's ridiculous. So my point here is not to talk about her sentence, but to show you that maybe what the Russians are doing here is they're eyeing a swap. So they're because this guy's a British citizen, remember, right? So maybe they're thinking that they can swap him with some Russian who's locked up inside the UK. Would the British government go for that? I don't know. I can't say, but there's always this speculation that the Russians are doing this because they want to have people that they can swap and get their own back. And the one after Yaroshenko, I interviewed Yaroshenko, the guy who was swapped for Griner, right here on the channel. So go watch it. After him, they did Victor Bout. Okay, so he was the second person to be swapped. Keep in mind, all of this is happening in the last year. So while the Ukraine war is taking place, the Americans and Russians are still engaging in diplomacy, and they're helping their own people out, which is good to see because one thing I should say is that Brittany Griner served 1 year. I don't think she served any large part of her sentence. She was detained for a year and started serving a bit of her sentence. My point here is that the Russians actually got screwed because their guys, Yaroshenko and Bout, they already served most of their sentence. We're talking 15 years. So, the Marine and Griner, they served nothing compared to that. But even then, they're all suffering in jail. No one wants it's cruel, right? So it's good they're all back with their families and their home. And perhaps this is less likely that they're going to do a swap here or they're eyeing a swap, but it's just a thought. I just thought that I would mention this, given that the Russians and the Americans did do that recently, and I had interviewed Yaroshenko. You should really go and watch that interview. He gives so much insights into what it's like being in an American prison. And, that guy was kidnapped, mind you. They kidnapped him from Liberia, even though they had an extradition treaty. They just ignored the treaty. They grabbed him. DEA agents. They kidnapped him, tortured him, and then illegally, smuggled him. Basically, there's a word for that. We say rendered. Brought him to the United States and then slapped him with fake charges. I mean, they said that he was conspiring to bring cocaine to the U.S. The guy couldn't even speak English. They had allegedly recorded him saying yes to this. He couldn't even understand a word. It's very, very, they talk about bogus charges. Go look at his case. Go look at the Assange case. I've covered both of them on the channel. I'll show you some real bogus and baloney. All right, for what it's worth. So let's leave it at that. Do you guys want to see some cringe? Oh God, I've got some cringe ready for you. My Lord, you are not ready. Oh Lord, you are not prepared. Oh, you are not prepared. Oh my God, you are not ready for this cringe. But you guys fasten your cringe seatbelts. All right, let's go.
Nigeria's constitution, like America's,
begins with a simple and profound idea. We, the people.
And during this election, you, the people of Nigeria, have a chance to make your voices heard, to choose your future.
The United States does not support any individual candidate for office.
But we strongly support a peaceful election.
I'm sorry, I couldn't stand it. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I clicked away.
Like America.
Oh God, I can't listen.
Matters, not only to Nigerians, but to the rest of the world.
We're invested in your success. Our shared democratic futures depend on it.
Go to inecnigeria.org to prepare to vote, because your voice matters.
The Nigerian people have a friend and partner in the United States of America.
What? Why are you? Why? Who are you, man? Are you Nigerian? Is Blinken Nigerian? Why are you lecturing Nigerians about going to vote and you know, referring to them as if they're your dominion or something? You know, they're part of your colonies. What is this? What is he talking to them like they're children? This is the State Department. This is an official video. Like, this is not a joke. Look, this is on. Greenfield, she posted it, right? She's the U.S. ambassador to the UN. This is really cringy. You leave African countries alone. Leave all other countries alone. Leave them alone. You don't need to make campaign videos, these cringy campaign videos, to tell anyone to vote or do or not vote. Or leave them alone. Just leave them alone, please. I beg you. I beg you. Leave Nigeria alone. Leave Africa alone. Leave the Middle East alone. Leave everyone alone. You don't need to do this. This is just cringy and very suspect. You know, especially when they have to play like, we don't support anyone for office. I really don't trust you at all. Nigeria, people were joking in the comments, like, did you just discover oil recently in Nigeria? Oh yeah, I mean, they didn't discover it recently, but, you know, since you brought up oil, the Nigerians, they're the top producer of oil in the entire African continent. Oh yeah, they're no joke or small fries in that domain when it comes to oil. They're the top, they're the king. So, you know, I'm half joking here. I'm not saying that they made this video in Blinken and, you know, all them, and because they want to steal the oil. I mean, God, could you put it past them? I don't know. Maybe. No, I wouldn't. But, you know, there's something suspicious going on. Let me bring your attention to this report I did a few weeks ago. We talked about how, well, actually, I talked about an investigation that I think it was, Guardian and a few others, they had basically unearthed this Team Dore, which is an Israeli company that specializes in election interference. And where do they do this? They do this in Africa, right? So, I mean, they do it globally if you'll pay, but they'd recently done several campaigns and they were showing off. So they'd been filmed secretly and they were showing off how they could hack all these accounts and they could meddle in elections in Africa, and had done so in the last couple of years. I mean, Jesus, they talk about the Russians and all this stuff. I've never seen Russians, you know, admitting to this on tape, but the Israelis certainly do, you know, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're cooking something for the Nigerians. Oh my God, really, man. Let me just put it this way, you know, they make everything sound nice and fancy, and on the surface it's great. On the surface, what they're saying is great. That's the problem, though. You can't take it at face value ever with these. These are politicians, man. You have to understand that when the Americans come at you and they start saying their catchphrase, free and fair elections, you better start running in the other direction. Run in the other direction and run very fast. Run! Run! They will... This has nothing to do with free and fair elections. They have something else cooking for you. Mark my words. And God, I hope I'm wrong. Oh, la 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 la. Oh, no. That concludes our 5 minutes of cringe. Unfortunately, it goes much longer than 5 minutes. But no, I won't say any more about this. I saw this and I was just stunned. I knew I had to share it with you guys. I couldn't suffer alone, right? So let me talk about something that's very, very sad, though, because it's something that's marked specifically today on April 17th, and we must discuss it. Lest we forget about the Palestinian Prisoners Day. So I'll go into it in just a second. And we'll discuss more in just a moment. I'm just getting something to drink. We'll be right back, guys, so don't go anywhere, okay? We'll be right back.
I am once again asking for your financial support.
A is for
all men and women created by you know the thing.
B is for
I'm beginning to see why your wife left you.
C is for
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
D is for
Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them.
E is for
An excuse to walk by the dealer and say, no, I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom, boom, boom.
F is for
Time friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life.
G is for
Go to Joe 30330.
H is for
Hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down.
I is for
I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
J is for
Just look at the record.
I have President Biden, Vice President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, if you look at my record and you still doubt about my commitment, then you should vote for somebody else.
K is for
Kids jumping on my lap, and I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
L is for
The lion, dog, face, pony soldier.
M is for
Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear work.
N is for
NATO.
O is for
The only African-American woman that's ever been elected to the United States Senate.
P is for
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
R is for
Rest her soul, and although your mom's still alive.
S is for
Send a text to the word united.
T is for
Truth over facts.
U is for
Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future.
V is for
I'll vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much.
W is for
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay.
X is for
Xi Jinping.
Y is for
And you ain't black.
You guys are saying I'm muted, but I haven't done anything differently. I've tried coming back in, and I hope it works. In any case, I was just, don't worry, I was just reading some of your comments out. So I guess you didn't miss any of the segments, but I wanted to go and talk about Palestinian Prisoners Day as the next one. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh man, you guys are very funny. Where the hell? Hey, Vega, where did you get this emoji from? Oh, Cheryl is back today with the emoji. You guys need to give these to me so I can spam them. Hold on. Oh Jesus, there's a lot here actually. Wow. Look at this green monster. Anyway, listen, man. I was just discussing. It's not working for me. There we go. I got it working. Look, I was just reading your own comments out, and we were just talking about how one of you said that Nigerian this was Madhu, I think, said Nigerian politicians are Western puppets. Yeah, I said, well, a lot of politicians are Western puppets, not just in Nigeria, and you know that's the problem. But they have many ways of you know, buying them, you know, co-opting them, putting them into forcing them into corners. I don't think all of them necessarily are happy about it, you know, in generally speaking. But I you know, earlier I was discussing Egypt and Jordan, right? So these are countries that have ties with Israel. And if you ask the people in the country, they're against it. Oh man, the chat is exploding right now. Hold on. No. You're confused, Silvio. You're not gonna spam more of these emojis than me. I'm gonna out spam you guys. Give me a second. You asked for this. Now I'm gonna have to do it. God. Are we having a competition now? Damn it! It won't let me put more than. Claudia's very upset. It won't let you put more than 7, I think. Apparently, I'm not allowed to comment in my own live stream because I just exceeded the limit. Oh come on, man! That's not fair. All right, guys, let's get back to you know, let's be a bit more serious here. So let's get. I gathered some notes for you about this, okay? So it's quite, you know, sad. I mean, it's really, really sad. So today's April 17th, and April 17th is used to mark Palestinian Prisoners Day, right? Because there are many of them who are languishing in Israeli prisons. And I just, you know, I put some notes together. I thought I'd read to you just to put into perspective, you know, what these guys go through, because the treatment is so horrific and inhumane. I mean, you know, the reality that these people are exposed to on a daily basis, it's really the worst kind of torture. So just some background info. I mean, this day, April 17th, was chosen as Palestinian Prisoners Day because it's the day that Mahmoud Bakr Hijazi, he was the first Palestinian to be freed in a prisoner swap with the Israelis, right? So in total, right now, you have around 4,000 Palestinians who are in Israeli prisoners, right? It's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000, right? So among them, 31 are women, 160 are children. One of those is a girl. And if you look at the status, 1,000 of these prisoners are held under Israeli administrative detention. Now, it isn't technically Israeli because this is actually a law that was left over from the British mandate, right? Not a very nice legacy. What administrative detention is, and again, pay attention because you're not going to believe this. Palestinians are arrested, and they are not even allowed to know what they are being charged with. They are kept for 6 months at a time, and this can be renewed forever, indefinitely. So you have people in Palestine, Palestinians, who have been in prison for literally years, and they have no clue why. They're not allowed to know. Their lawyers are not allowed to know. It's state secret. I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing? Even the guy we were talking about, the Russian, Kara Murza, who got 25 years this morning in Russia. He at least knows what he's been charged and convicted with, right? In the United States, when they imprison, I mean, the United States is 25% of the prison population, right, on this planet. It's a business. It's a sick, the prison industrial complex is real. And even those people at least know why, they're in prison, even if it's bogus and they've been treated unjustly, they at least know. These guys know. It's a secret. So you've got 1,000 people under administrative detention, and again, it's renewed indefinitely. One of the people has been in prison since 1985. 1985. You've got 11 Palestinian prisoners who have been released and then are re-imprisoned. I mean, I think 11, that figure might be a bit too low because, we're talking about in administrative detention. It's actually much more than that. But I'm talking about ones that are currently, right now, this second. In total, that figure would be much higher. There's, I forgot which channel did this. It was Ad-Damir, actually. Yeah, Ad-Damir. I interviewed Ad-Damir on this channel. It's basically an organization that fights for the rights of Palestinian prisoners, and they did just basic interviews with Palestinian women, Palestinian men, and asked them about administrative detention, and it just breaks families apart. It's very, very disgusting. So Nael al-Barghouti, he's been in prison for 43 years, right? 34 of the 43 continuously, the rest in and out. 400 of the 4,000 Palestinian prisoners have been in prison for over 20 years. They've been serving over 20 years in prison, right? 700 of them are sick. They need medical attention. And Walid Daqqa is serving, so this is his 37th year in prison. And the idea here is not just to say a bunch of numbers. Palestinian Prisoners Day is really like, they're just demanding, they're just asking us to remember them, to not forget about them, because that's what Israel wants. They want to lock these guys up and throw away the key, and it's really cruel. Khudr Adnan, so he's from Jenin, right in the West Bank. He's in critical condition, and he's on hunger strike right now. And they've postponed his hearing. Even though they were going to pay the money to maybe get him released, they postponed the hearing. And this guy, remember, he's refusing to eat. He's on hunger strike because of his unjust imprisonment. And so this is a game that the Israelis play, where they'll keep the prisoners who are on hunger strike, to the last second, like when they're really on a knife's edge, they're literally about to die. And then, only then will they give them medical attention. And, if you make it, good luck. And, oftentimes, these guys, they have after the hunger strike, they have health problems. And it's difficult to recover. And, obviously, the medical negligence, this intentional medical negligence, it's cruel, it's inhumane. Why would you leave someone on hunger strike till the last second just to get a doctor to take a look at them. You know, it's sick. And Khudr Adnan, he's been arrested 12 times, right? He's been in prison for 8 years, and this is his 5th hunger strike. His 5th hunger strike. Damn. I mean, you know, I shouldn't say damn. I should say, you know, God give him strength. So he's going off of 70 days now, hunger strike. So that's over 2 months he has not eaten. 2 months, right? Over 2 months, 70 days. Walid Daqa, 31 years in prison. So I mentioned him a few moments ago. Actually, forgive me. I don't know if it's 31 or 37. I apologize for that. But I mean, the point here is the guy's been serving 3 decades. I mean, for what? For what? These are all political prisoners, you know. Abd al-Basit, also administrative detention, 10 years. Still has no clue what he's been charged with. I mean, how can you put someone in jail for 10 years and not tell them why they're in jail? Who does that? No one does that. I don't know any place on earth that does this. God, it's really sick. 50 of the 4,000 Palestinian prisoners have life sentences. Okay, 120 of them are suffering. 120 of them are suffering from various wounds. I don't know if that's gunshot wounds or otherwise, but they're basically they're not well. And you know, if a woman is giving birth, a Palestinian woman is giving birth, they will take her and chain her to the bed while she's giving birth. I mean, I've never heard of something so disgusting in my life. They chain a woman to the bed while she's giving birth. I mean, they act like Palestinian women are like serial killers who have, you know, what is she going to do? What is she going to do with her bare hands while giving birth? This is sick. This is disgusting. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. So, you know, it's very unfortunate because unfortunate, putting it mild. I mean, the situation in general is really it's pessimistic and sad and upsetting because the NGOs, you know, I'm not talking about Ad-Damir and the Palestinian ones. I'm speaking generally on the world stage. You know, Amnesty International and all this. They can't really change the situation. Yes, they'll call Israel apartheid and all this stuff, but for the prisoners, for the Palestinian prisoners, they're forgotten. You know, no one talks about them or pleads their case. And look at the press today. You know, they all talked about Kara Murza in Russia. What about them? What about these guys? I just told you, there are some of them have been in prison for 2-3 decades. Many of them have no clue why they're in prison. Jesus Christ, how can you not talk about this? How is this not front page news? Today is Palestinian Prisoners Day. Did any of these newspapers, Washington Post, New York Times, did they run front page stories about this? Of course not. Not a word. But they'll happily fund, you know, Israel. They'll happily give Israel the money. They, meaning, you know, the United States or Britain, which in this case, you know, I mean, what a legacy, you know. The United Kingdom invented administrative detention. This practice that I'm telling you about, where you just grab people off the street, put them in prison, and you don't tell them why they're in prison, and you can just do this indefinitely, and you know, you basically you transfer. This is another war crime, by the way. These are war crimes. If that wasn't, you know, obvious, they transfer someone who's been arrested to another area, and that's forbidden under the Geneva Convention, right? I've covered this in detail. We've gone through them, all the articles, and the other practice of trying a civilian in a military court, another war crime. This is what they do. This is administrative detention. It's martial law. It's a just straight up dictatorship. And this intentional medical negligence from the Israelis is another crime on top of everything else, on top of the unjust imprisonment, on top of the administrative detention. That you have people on hunger strike and you refuse them medical attention and wait till they're really, like, you know, in a dying breath till you finally finally transfer them to a hospital where they're, of course, under guard and, treated like, Nazis or something, or mass murderers. I mean, this is really, really disgusting behavior. And the fact that Europe and the United States snow job this and rehabilitate Israel's behavior is inexcusable and deplorable. This is injustifiable. I don't even want to hear about Russia. Why don't you start with this? Why don't you start with this, right? Why don't you clean up your own house? Why don't you stop funding this? Then we can talk about Russia and Ukraine. Let's talk about this first. This has been going on for 70 plus years. When are we dealing with this? Hypocrisy. Straight up hypocrisy. Man, this is I just remembered now when you had the prison break from crap, what was the name of the prison again? I forgot, but it doesn't matter. You remember when the 6 Palestinians, they broke free with spoons. Dude, this was a maximum security prison. They dug their way out with spoons. I mean, the Israelis are never going to recover from that. That is the embarrassment of a lifetime. How is this a maximum security prison and they're digging their way out with spoons and you can't find these guys? Oh man, they did find them, unfortunately, at the end. They arrested the 6, right? Forgive me, just let me get the name of the prison again. I mean, man. Oh man, that was funny. I was really rooting for those guys. I was just, I have my fingers crossed. And God, please keep them low, let them lie low, and let no one find them. Gilboa, that was the name. Gilboa. Gilboa prison break. Man. Catherine in the comments is saying it was like a Clint Eastwood movie. Yes. Yeah, I see. We have a fellow aficionado of the Eastwood variety. You've seen Alcatraz, I take it, yes? Here, let me show you the Gilboa prison break. You guys remember this, right? We covered it on the channel. I hope you were all tuned in and attentive, yes? When class is in session. So it was this one. There you go, the Gilboa prison break. So it's in September 2021, right? Zakaria Zubaydi, right? Head of the Al-Aqsa Marchers Brigade in Jenin. Very important. Very, very, very important. That's another armed faction in the West Bank. And remember what I told you, and I'm still going to tell you, right now in the West Bank, these factions like Al-Aqsa Marchers Brigade, or even, if you're talking about Palestinian Islamic Jihad or whatever it is, these groups are actually the true resistance now against the Israelis. The so-called Palestinian leadership, when we talk about Mahmoud Abbas, a lot of people, they look at the PLO now today as basically Israel outsourcing all of the duties of running an occupation, right? Because they cooperate with the Israelis, unfortunately, right? So the burden and the torch of resisting Israeli occupation has now, naturally been passed on to Hamas in Gaza, and in the West Bank, where the PLO runs things, to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, to Jenin, to Nablus, and so on. And that's why the Israelis, like assassins, they stormed Nablus and executed 3 Palestinians in their car, and they were posing as some kind of truck. I don't remember what it was. And then you remember they assassinated, because they were doing these raids, and they're still doing raids into Jenin refugee camp, because that's where the resistance comes from. These guys, keep in mind, everyone talks about, international law and Ukraine's borders and this. Wow, great. Thank you for waking up. Yeah, we've been talking about international law for quite some time. Thanks for joining us. What about Palestine's borders? Even if you accept this bullshit partition plan, even if you accept that, The West Bank is not Israel. Why are the Israelis invading Palestine and raiding Jenin and shooting up a refugee camp every week? You know, or I should say every other month. And then they killed Shireen Abu, so the journalist covering the raids. What about their borders? Are you going to address this? No. Screw it. You know, it's really disgusting. It's really hypocritical. I loathe it. In any case, Majid, thank you for reminding me that my microphone was muted just earlier, and for becoming a member of the channel and for supporting the show. For that, I will play you a crab dance. Thank you to everyone who's supporting the show, and if you join on YouTube, you'll unlock these special emojis. Let's go, guys! Come on.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s. Number 9 large.
we got him.
I told myself, I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Disgusting!
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Man, I love that crab dance. What a work of art, if I may say so. Thank you, Claudia, for updating it. Man, that moan when you see him fist bumping MBS. Oh, what an appropriate reaction. My God, the cringe. Thank you, Claudia, very much. Claudia has kindly updated the number of Patreons, or rather patrons, that we have on Patreon. Basically, people who are supporting the show. Look at that. 694. Come on, guys. We need 6 people. I know there are 6 people among you who are willing to support the show. So if you would like to, please help me reach the goal. We only need 6 people. You can support $1 a month, $2 a month, whatever you see fit, and whatever you can afford, whatever is good for you and acceptable. I'd be more than happy, because that's how you support my show and my work, and this is what allows me to do what I do. So, you know, we only have a few more people to go. I'm sure we can do it, right? We've got, what is it, 500 people watching right now? We've got this, guys. Come on, let's do it. I'm gonna be following. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring up the notifications on Patreon so I can follow. And of course, this goes without saying, whenever somebody joins on Patreon, we play the crab dance again. So come on, guys, let's play it a second, third, and sixth time. Thank you to Emil. Thank you to Kathy, to Francis, to Kayvon. Thank you all for becoming members on Patreon. I really appreciate that. And the show owes you a debt of gratitude. So thank you for supporting everything I do. And we have this is a donation from Underhill. It says, happy fun time, 9,001 forever. I'm not quite sure what that refers to, but thank you for the donation. And let me see if there's anything on PayPal so I can read thank you, Mahmoud, in the comments. You're very kind. Just give me a second. Let me see on PayPal if there's anything. Someone might have sent something on CashApp that I might have missed as well. Just give me a moment. Blood Hazard says poor guy can't give you money because of sanctions. Don't worry. Seriously, it's okay. I get it. And I've seen. I think there was someone commenting 2 weeks ago that they're in Russia and they can't give anything. It's okay. I am content with your moral support. Seriously, I'm not saying that sarcastically. It's really, you gotta laugh, otherwise you're gonna cry. You know, that's how I see it with this thing, because sanctions, man, really, they really destroy countries. You know, it's an embargo. It's really an embargo. You know, similar to what they done to Cuba, what Saudi Arabia did to Yemen, or is doing. To my knowledge, they haven't reopened Hodeidah. Omar says, sending love to the prisoners in occupied Palestine. Habibi, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. That goes without saying. You know, we send them our support. You know, the Israelis. Look, man. Let me say this to you very clearly. Everything that the Israelis are doing to the Palestinian prisoners is disgusting. Number one, they are showing the true nature of what Israel is, that it's an apartheid colony, you know, because if they treated Palestinians like equals, and if this really was a democracy like they claim to be, they always give you this catchphrase, oh, we are the only democracy in the Middle East. You're funny. If that were true, these Palestinians wouldn't be in prison. 99% of them would not be in prison. Because they are a democracy as long as you're a Jewish settler. Yeah, maybe. The problem is that you can't make, you know, a European settler colony on occupied land a democracy. That's a joke. But I just want to show you the hypocrisy. This is multiple levels of hypocrisy and criminal behavior. They don't treat the Palestinians as equals, okay? They don't treat them as they would Jewish settlers. So even under their so-called Israeli laws, the Israeli laws don't apply. Then, on what basis does Israel even have jurisdiction in the West Bank, in Jerusalem? On whose authority are you giving out and handing out sentences and arresting people? The United Nations Security Council is very clear on this issue. Multiple times have said Israel has no authority in Jerusalem, in the East Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not to be annexed. It's not for you. The West Bank is not for you. The Golan Heights are not for you. You have to leave. So on what basis are the Israelis setting up courts, these kangaroo courts, on, violating the United Nations Security Council resolutions, and then, telling people to leave their homes in Sheikh Jarrah so that Jewish settlers can move in? You don't have jurisdiction in East Jerusalem. This is illegal under international law. You're not allowed to do this. Null and void. Those are the exact words, the exact terms in the UN Security Council resolutions about Israel's annexation. Null and void. No jurisdiction, no legal basis whatsoever to arrest someone, to evict them, to give them a fucking parking ticket. None. Zero. The Geneva Convention. So the international treaties, not just the UN Security Council, the international treaties, the war crimes, forcible transfer of populations, forcible transfer of prisoners from one territory, one occupied territory to another occupied territory, trying civilians under military courts. All of these are war crimes. Whatever way you look at this, even if you are a raging, raving Zionist, you love Israel, you believe in Israel, even then, you cannot sit here and tell me that the Palestinians are being tried as equals. They're not being treated as equals in any way. This is apartheid. This is racist. This is colonialist bullshit. There is no way that you can look at the situation of the Palestinian prisoners and justify it under any in any logic, in no moral capacity, right? No legal capacity can you justify this behavior. It is appalling. And I told you, the pregnant women that are in Israeli prisons, they tie them to beds as they're giving birth. Who does this? How do you have people serving 8, 10, 20 years in prison and you don't tell them why they're in prison? I've never heard of this in my life. No country on earth does this. Never mind a democracy. Even in evil Putin, right? Russia, the evil Russia they keep talking about. Even they tell people why they're jailing them, right? Jesus, I mean, this is, and the fact the Western press have nothing to say. And today is specifically Palestinian Prisoners Day. Remember, these guys they're not numbers and statistics, man. These are people, you have entire families. Look at the videos that Ad-Damir filmed. It's just a camera on a table and they're letting people speak. You got one mother arrested with administrative detention, has no clue why she's in prison. And then she's in and out of prison, and then they take her son, and then her brother, and then the whole family's been in jail, and they don't even know why. Man, the audacity, the fucking nerve they have to run around the world and say, "Oh, we're a democracy." The goddamn nerve of these people! How dare you? Sickening, man. I'm sick of this. And then they call the Palestinians terrorists. Yo, man, listen to me very clearly. I don't write the laws. I didn't come up with the Geneva Convention and the Hague Convention and the UN Security Council resolutions. They're done way before I was born. But they're very clear. The Palestinians have every right to resist Israeli occupation, whether they want to throw stones or whatever other means they see fit. You have no right calling them terrorists, just like the Ukrainians. You keep banging this drum about how, they not only have the right to resist the Russians, but we should give them all our money. We should give them tens of billions, hundreds of billions. That's how much, they believe in their right to resist. All of a sudden now they remember these things, right? And these words. Man, if you gave that money to Palestinians, you'd be put in a prison and called a terrorist. And the Palestinians have a lot more to complain about. They have a lot more right to plead their case for resistance because they've been suffering under this for 70 plus years. And then before that, the British. Man, oh man. Look at these double standards. Wow. Hey, look at that. We got Adam, we got Odell, and we got Claire who just joined on Patreon. Thank you very much. So we are now at 697. Come on, guys. We need 3 more people. 3 more people to go. Please join on Patreon. Please support my work. Please support the show. Please support independent media. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. Anything you like. Anything that you see fit in any currency. Come on, guys. We're almost there. We're at 697. Let's go. And Claudio, please, could you update the graphic so I put it on the screen? I owe you guys a crab dance. While I'm playing the crab dance, 3 people, please go sign up. Let's hit the goal. We need 3 more people. Let's do it.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s. Number 9 large.
we got him.
I know it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Disgusting! Why you take it? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
All right, how about that? Claudia, I'm afraid you're going to have to update it again because we have just got our 698th member. This is Miscellaneous Deeds. Come on, guys. Two more to go. Let's do this. I'm not leaving till two more people sign up. That's it. You're stuck. You have to deal with me. We got 2 more to go. I wonder who's going to be number 700. Who's going to be number 700, I wonder. And again, thank you to those of you who are joining on YouTube as well, because basically, let me explain this. They gave me the ability to enable YouTube memberships. It's basically the same thing as Patreon. It's just that you get emojis apparently. So yeah. You know what? Another thing that I forgot to mention is that you have Wagner Group. You know, it's funny because you know you hear a lot about Wagner Group now in Ukraine, but you have to remember that it's really interesting, man. Russia and the UAE, they're extracting gold, or at least buying up gold and facilitating its extraction in Sudan. Sudan produces a lot of gold, man. You're seeing basically people abandon agriculture for mining. And this is having, you know, unfortunately, you know, birth defects as a result of the, you know, mercury being dumped in the river and so on. You know, basically, people are there's you know, almost a gold rush, you could say, to the point that it's even being done in some ways, you know, that haven't been officially sanctioned, and then of course it leads to pollution. It reminded me when I was reading about this, reminded me of Syria, how people stealing the oil, you know, whether it was ISIS or whoever else, they were because the state wasn't doing it. They were using crude, no pun intended, crude methods to extract the oil, which polluted the environment and then affects the people living in that environment, right? It has adverse health effects. And so anyway, just going back to my point here is that my point wasn't that Russia's dumping mercury and causing birth defects. No, not at all. It's nothing to do with that. My point was that the gold rush in Sudan is so real that the Russians and the Emirates are very interested in this, right? And they're buying up a lot of it. The other thing is that RSF, so the Rapid Strike Force, which is now fighting with the Sudanese army, they were sending their troops, or some of their troops, to fight in Yemen against the Houthis, meaning on the side of Saudi Arabia, right? So they were fighting on the side of the Saudis and the UAE. And at the same time, the Russians, they have their own, you know, sphere of influence in the Sahel. So Sahel, so basically in the region, just, you know, right on the border of sub-Saharan Africa, right? So we're talking about Chad, Mali, and Horn of Africa. You know, Sudan is more Horn of Africa, but this entire region, I mean, it's plagued with terrorism because of America. You know, the United States has gone in and destabilized these countries. Look how after they killed Gaddafi, we should say NATO actually, they killed Gaddafi. Look how you have these terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS, that popped up in Libya, and then they spread to the neighboring countries. This is not a coincidence. The timing is not a coincidence. Okay? And what happened in Iraq when they killed Saddam Hussein? You had ISIS pop up and then spill over into Syria where they were trying to remove Assad. This is not a coincidence. Right? When you go and mess with these countries and you start creating power vacuums and you remove the shall we say, the iron fist that's ruling the country, but also making sure the country's advancing and you know, there's a calm political stability and social stability, you destroy the fabric of the country and everything becomes chaos. And then you have Western countries coming in and pretending that they had nothing to do with all the violence that's ensued. Come on, man. This is, just at least owe up to it at the very least. Don't insult people's intelligence. But going back to Sudan, I don't think the Russians are, running around because they want Wagner Group to go send a bunch of mercenaries and shoot people in Sudan. I mean, we're not talking about Blackwater here, right? The Russians and Chinese are not interested in building military bases. They are interested in economic partnership with Africa, because the European version of interacting with Africa has been theft. I don't need, again, this is not my opinion. This is fact. This is historical fact. The European powers, and to this day, plundered and destroyed Africa, and as they did to other continents and places, right? The Russian and Chinese model of interacting with other countries is not colonialism, and I'm not talking about the Soviet Union. I'm talking about Russia and China today. Their version of interacting with other countries is not, oh, let's go invade them and steal their resources. It's let's work out a deal, and then, we both benefit. But the Western press, they don't like that. So they start trashing the Chinese and trashing the Russians and start making it about, oh, well, the Chinese, they're really ripping off the Africans. What the fuck did you do? Who the hell are you to speak ripping off the Africans? Christ, that's a compliment compared to what Europe did and America did to the Africans. if that's ripping off, what did we do to them? Well, I mean, the nerve, really the nerve of British and American press to speak like that about the Chinese. God, they really got some nerve, these people. They really got some nerve. And then, they complain about the Russians. Hold on a second. You leave Wagner Group alone for a second. What about Blackwater? First of all, did you cover Blackwater's crimes when they were happening? And did you cover Trump's pardon of the Blackwater criminals? Did you even give a crap? Don't come here and talk to me about Wagner Group like they're some major player in Sudan or whatever. They're not. They're absolutely not. These countries wouldn't have Wagner Group or Russians at all if you hadn't messed with them in the first place. The Russians wouldn't be upgrading their base in Syria to be state of the art if you hadn't messed with Syria. The Russians wouldn't be building a base in the Red Sea if you wouldn't have a base in Djibouti, in the Horn of Africa, if you wouldn't be attacking Iranian ships, fuel ships, not military, and harassing the Iranian oil tankers. What is this, man? The Chinese wouldn't be building a base in the Solomon Islands if you hadn't put Australia into AUKUS and given them nuclear-powered submarines. Every time someone defends themselves from the West, they take that and try to frame it as aggression. No, it's not aggression. That's actual defense, right? And again, in the case of Africa, when it comes to Sudan and the Sahel region, all this terrorism came from NATO intervention. I hate this word. Don't let them get away with this. This is not NATO intervention. When they talk about Ukraine, they say Russia's brutal aggression. Then let's say the same thing. NATO's brutal aggression in Libya. Intervention. What are you, stopping a friend from being an alcoholic? What is it? You bombed that place to bits. You destroyed civilian infrastructure. You committed war crimes. Intervention. Oh, it was a mistake. It was it was erroneous. Foreign policy errors. No. You're not getting away with that. That doesn't work here. Intervention. Jesus Christ. What does aggression look like then if that's your intervention? No, but I just wanted to say a word about that because I just broke down. I don't know when have you tuned in, but I was just breaking down the whole situation in Sudan, and I just realized I forgot to talk about Wagner Group because they are talking about Wagner Group. There's no question that the Russian influence in Sudan is increasing. There's no question about that. I told you they're building a military base that will give them a key strategic port on the Red Sea. And the gold, the Russians and the Emirates are very interested in the gold industry in Sudan, which is exploding. So yes, and the Chinese also, they're interested in uranium extraction as well. Okay, so what? Why shouldn't they be? I mean, they try to frame basic, economic interaction as some kind of ripoff, or the Russians are taking advantage, or they're spreading, the communist boogeyman is spreading in Africa. Jesus, come on. Remember who has a giant drone base in Niger. Remember 50 out of 54 African countries have a U.S. military presence. And remember who has a base in Djibouti. Actually, there are many bases in Africa, but the one in Djibouti is kind of it's a center where if they have someone who's wounded, they'll go through Djibouti and then to Europe and so on. It's a very important base, the one in Djibouti. They've been tearing up Somalia since, we were children, right? Like, I don't know if you guys are all the same age as me, but, in the 90s. Have you seen that movie, Black Hawk Down? Now, don't get me wrong. The production is excellent. The cinematography and the soundtrack and the actors, they're all lovely. But this is a propaganda piece. I'm sorry. It's just, this is the way it goes. And it's not because I that's my opinion. The Pentagon wrote the script. I mean, they didn't write all of it, but they are shown the script and they have a say in the script. It's propaganda. It's a state propaganda. I'm sorry. Just because it's nicely packaged doesn't change what it is. Because you see, the way it works in America is that if you agree to give the Pentagon permission to edit the script, then they will give you aircraft and they'll give you helicopters and they'll give you access to, things that you don't typically have as a movie director. I don't know too many movie directors of F-16s and UH-1 Bells lying around. This is very costly, and also to use munitions like that and so on. God, I mean, let's just say it makes your life a lot easier if you are trying to make an action movie. There's no question about it. But it is a propaganda piece, and what really annoys me about this film is that they start the movie after they start the movie, and they don't give you all the background information, right? So first of all, there's like a few sentences where they're basically like trying to fill you in on what's happening in Somalia, and they conveniently leave out the massacre that took place a few months before, right? Where the Americans were chasing some warlord, and they brought their helicopters and just like shot up, an entire building block and killed like 50 civilians. They leave that out conveniently, and then when they show you the Somalians, they paint them as like these hordes of zombies, who are just brainless and just like they just hate the West. And Jesus, I mean, they talk about North Korea making propaganda. Wow. I was discussing this with someone also with Argo. You remember that film Argo, which is also a very nice production, very nicely made. Ben Affleck directed it. Great actors. Yes. They make the Iranians look like zombies. Everyone who is against America is like a horde of brainless people, and that's how they portray them in the film. They dehumanize them. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent here of talking about Somalia, but it is the Horn of Africa, and my point here was that they destroyed these countries, and there's been an American influence in these countries for a long time, and it doesn't mean America is the source of all evil and everything is America's fault. No one is saying that. But let's not portray the Russians and the Chinese as invading or like an octopus extending its tentacles into Africa. Oh my God, they're doing business deals. To the calamity of it. Seriously. Clean up your own backyard, clean up your own home, deal with your own affairs, and then maybe you can start pointing fingers. This is really it's really childish and immature, and it's nothing to do with journalism. And I feel like instead of actually giving you real background information and trying to educate you about Sudan, they just like throw in, oh well, what can we say about Russia here? Like, oh yeah, Wagner Group. This what the fuck? This has nothing to do with Wagner Group, man. Anyway, whatever. I didn't see many of them mention the base actually, but I certainly took the time to mention it because isn't it convenient? Isn't it convenient? 2 months ago, Sudan approves a Russian naval base, and then all of a sudden they're fighting. I mean, don't get me wrong. These guys, they definitely have reasons to dislike each other, but they were working together. They They simultaneously did a coup together. Burhan and Dogolo. So until last week, they were somehow able to work together. Anyway, I'm just saying it's convenient. If you are the United States and you're looking at the situation, it's very good because the Russian naval base is going to be delayed now, and who the hell knows for how long. It's absolutely going to be delayed. But it's not the only thing. And I wanted to mention also that Blinken and the US and the EU and they're all calling for a ceasefire, which is great, right? Like I'm not trying to I'm not giving them crap for that. On the contrary, why won't they call for a ceasefire in Ukraine? That's my point. It's good to call for a ceasefire, but instead of calling for a ceasefire in Ukraine, they just pour more fuel onto the fire. They just want to sell more weapons, or rather assist Ukraine in acquiring weapons, right? Someone's going to pay for that, and it's coming out of someone's pocket. And guess what? They're not the ones at the top or in Ukraine. It's the weapons manufacturers. They don't give out weapons for free. So my point here is that instead of calling for a ceasefire in Ukraine, they only do it in Sudan. I mean, great. Yeah, there should be a ceasefire in Sudan. Absolutely. I would go further than that. There should be, a peace settlement and a transition and all the things they were going to do. Very nice. Give Sudan back to the Sudanese. Let them govern themselves. Let them actually let the civilian administration actually have a chance, because so far it's only been military rule, right? So just to reiterate, Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, he's calling for a ceasefire in Sudan, and that's great. That's what we need, right? The European Union also calling for a ceasefire. The United Nations, everyone, Antonio Guterres, everybody is calling for a ceasefire. Where is this energy when it comes to Ukraine? Is it perhaps because in Ukraine, the weapons manufacturers are making money by keeping this conflict going as long as possible? Does that have something to do with it? Is it perhaps because you can't kill enough Russians in Sudan, but you can in Ukraine? I sense a lack of enthusiasm when it comes to peace talks in Ukraine. And Ukraine, you could argue, needs it the most. But again, it's not a question of who deserves or needs it the most. Both warrant a ceasefire, and the United States, being so involved in Ukraine, must absolutely ask for one and endeavor to accomplish that, because the people of Ukraine deserve that, the world deserves that, and this is needed. I mean, they should have engaged in diplomacy with the Russians in the first place to avoid the war even taking place, but it's already happened now. We can't change that. So what do? You go for a ceasefire, and then you go for reconciliation, and then you get a Russian withdrawal, and so on, right? No. Let's just keep going, come on, more, raise the military budget, give more billions, in so-called aid. It's not aid. The guys who build bombs, they don't give out bombs for free. They don't give out bombs because they have, warm, fuzzy feelings for Ukraine. Someone is paying for those bombs. And guess what? It's you. You're paying for them. Man, what a scam. What a scam. What a con all of this is, yeah? Where's the call for ceasefire in Ukraine? You can directly influence that, Mr. Blinken. You can directly influence that and press for that. You have a mandate, right, to run the foreign affairs of the United States. Of course you could achieve a ceasefire in Ukraine. Sudan, this is outside of your jurisdiction and your mandate. You have nothing to do with that, right? Or so we think for now, right? I'm being a bit cheeky now, because as I said, it's convenient for the Americans to have the Russian base, the naval base there delayed. I'm being cheeky, but just going back to my point, I want to see this energy, and I'm sure Ukrainians will want to see this energy for a ceasefire from you, Mr. Blinken, and from and Antonio Guterres and everybody else, because they don't even bother with diplomacy. There's no effort for a peace talks. The last time there was any sort of, any real sense of peace talks and negotiations, Boris Johnson, who was the British Prime Minister at that time, he hurried off to meet Zelensky and convinced him to pull out, and then everything fell apart. There's been nothing since, and it's only getting worse. So, instead of warring with Russia, why not try diplomacy? Give that a chance, because all of the things that were somewhat good, like the grain corridor, although they used that to blow up the Crimea Bridge, didn't they? They used it as a cover. Nevertheless, the grain corridor, that was achieved through diplomacy, wasn't it? The prisoner swap that just took place, diplomacy. No, the prisoner swap between Russia and the United States, right? So Yaroshenko, the one I interviewed, diplomacy. No, diplomacy gets things done. Look at Iran, China, and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and Yemen, Saudi Arabia and Syria. Diplomacy's good. Maybe try it, since you're the top diplomat. Give it a chance, yeah? Anyway, I've talked your guys. I've talked your ears off. I have no regrets. I regret nothing. Kimberly, I think Kimberly is... Oh man, I don't know who's number 800. Wow, you guys have gone wild. You guys have gone wild. I don't know who's number 800. Hold on. We had, I think it was Kayvon. It was the, no. It's, wow. Okay. So Kayvon, Claire, Odell, Adam, Jani, and Kimberly. Thank you guys so much. I think we hit our goal. I think we hit the goal of 700. I don't know who's number 800. I'm still trying to figure it out. The list is long. You guys are amazing. Please let me play your crab dance. Everybody, show them some love. Let's go. In the comment section, make it go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch out.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s. The number 9 large.
we got him.
I told myself, I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Disgusting!
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you!
Hey, thank you guys so much. I'm so grateful. I thought we hit the goal. Claudia's saying that we're one person short. I really don't know. I sometimes when you look at the number, it doesn't match. It takes a while to update, basically. But in any case, if you do like my work, please consider supporting it. You can do so on Patreon. It's basically a website where you donate monthly, like whatever you want, $1, £2, it €3, $3.50, whatever you want. I'm grateful, and it helps support independent journalism. So thank you very much. There's also PayPal, CashApp, Bitcoin. Everything is available, and Claudia is very kind. She's posting the links in the comment section. I don't think I saw anything new on PayPal. And let me just double check for YouTube. I don't see anything new there. So in any case, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Just please remember to share the videos, right? Give them some love. Share them with your friends. Share them wherever you post on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. It's really important, you know, to yeah, Claudia's saying is the Patreon page takes time to update, right? It's what I thought. So guys, thank you so much for supporting the show, and what can I say? I'm very grateful. Here are the QR codes if you'd like to donate on Cash App or PayPal or Venmo. You can just open the camera app, scan the QR code, and then it will take you directly to the page where you can send a note or a question or whatever. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. I'm so grateful you tuned in, and that we were able to cover the Sudan thing, because it's very, very precarious right now what's happening. Yeah, it's a very complex situation. I don't, if I may say so, I mean, to my knowledge, I've not seen too many covering it. So I thought, I mean, you know, I absolutely must, you know, remember it's an Arab country and an African country, both. And, you know, it's Sudan is such an important place, you know. I don't just mean historically, but strategically, you know, in today's world, and geographically, everything is changing right now in the Middle East and in Africa. This is, you know, Asia and Africa. This is the future of everything, the multipolar world. This is where it's going to happen, you know, so you need to pay close attention. Sudan, like I said, Russians and Chinese are very interested in that place. The Americans too, you know, if they can get their hands on it. But I hope everything will be okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye. Sweden wanted to join NATO. They broke with their you know, decades-long neutral stance. Turkey was one of the only countries, I think, along with Hungary, that was saying, we're not going to let you in, because you need to have consensus, right? You need all the members in NATO to say, okay, you can join. Their bid has kind of been in limbo because Turkey wanted to, you know, extract several concessions. It was very clear that they really want to join NATO in Sweden, and they were doing everything they could to appease the Turks. And then this moron comes in front of the Turkish embassy and burns the Quran. I understand that in their point of view, this is freedom of expression, and you know, you're in Sweden, you can do whatever you like. But you have to remember that if you're trying to get Turkey support, maybe wait until after you've gotten it. I mean, this is just dumb from you know, a diplomatic level. They're doing everything to appease Turkey, and then because of one idiot, they let this go to waste. The Germans and the Americans have decided that it would be a good idea to send Ukraine tanks. You know, German tanks against the Russian. Man, I'm perplexed by this. You know, what do they think is going to happen? Because even if you can train the Ukrainian crews who are used to Soviet tanks to operate British tanks, and then you got to train them to operate German tanks, and then you got to train them to operate American tanks, and that's if they can even maintain the logistical supply line to work with these tanks, to keep them running. What kind of door are you opening now for the Russians to do? I mean, this is very clearly escalation. While Germany and the US are saying, yeah, we're going to give Ukraine tanks, the doomsday clock has been moved to 90 seconds to midnight. So this is basically, it's a measurement of how close we are to the end of the world, to the apocalypse, to annihilating the planet with nuclear weapons, right? And this is the closest it's ever been to midnight, okay? Midnight representing the end. Ukraine's most senior military commander has said that his forces need about 300 Western tanks. Over the last year, NATO allies in Eastern Europe supplied Ukraine with Soviet-era and Russian-made tanks that have been ground down or destroyed in constant fighting. Soviet-era and Russian-made tanks. Now, Ukraine, having been a Soviet satellite state and part of the Soviet Union. It was part of Russia. You know, all of its military personnel being trained on Russian tanks. What do you think they're going to do with American tanks or German tanks, which they are not trained to operate? The Ukrainians know how to operate Russian tanks. That's all they know how to operate. The Ukrainians only use Soviet stuff, right? Until the last couple of years and until now. You know, this is the first major influx of NATO weapons. And again, NATO has been training Ukrainian forces, but Challenger tanks, this is brand new. If they can't even use the tanks that they're trained to use, what makes you so confident they're going to know how to use a Leopard 2 or an M1A2 or a Challenger 2? Man, people train on those things for fucking months and years. Both of these home secretaries, okay, Suella Braverman and Priti Patel, both their parents came to the United Kingdom, and under their own laws as home secretary, they themselves would not have been able to come to the UK, to be born in the UK, and to have a life there. So like the hypocrisy is so disgusting, you know, like I got what I wanted, I'm okay, I'm secure, I can live in the UK, I'm the home secretary now I'm gonna shut the gates. Now I'm going to screw people that have literally nothing, that are so desperate they're, you know, risking drowning in the Channel or the Mediterranean Sea. People have to resort to risking drowning. They have to resort to, you know, hiding in trucks or swimming across the Channel, if everyone's ever done that, you know, crossing the Channel because of her policies, because she forces people into doing that, right? So you literally have no choice. You have to be in the UK to begin the application. What are people supposed to do? Just teleport, you know, for 5 minutes, write down the form and just get out of the UK? This is ridiculous. She's a liar, just like the one, you know, her predecessor, Priti Patel. Why is Germany reluctant to give the Ukrainians tanks? That's a really tough one. I wonder why. Germany has long refused to send its most potent weapons to countries in conflict, a byproduct of its legacy of starting World War II and World War I. That's horse manure, because Germany does send weapons to countries in war. You know, Saudi Arabia is one of them. So to get around this, the trick that they use is they don't sell the tanks and you know, the ordnance directly to Saudi Arabia. They move it to Italy, and then from Italy they sell it to the Saudis. So they basically just insert a middleman, and that's how they get around this very, you know, honorable principle of theirs, which they never abide by. You know, if you go and you look up the Yemen war, I mean, you're going to see weapons from fucking everywhere. You know, the Canadians have been selling weapons and making money. Britain, the US, Australia, everyone. And the Germans are no exception. So I mean, the idea is true, but they fucking send weapons. They goddamn do. They do. Do you see how they move like snakes? Do you see how they move like snakes? They get the media to whisper in your ear, "Oh, don't go on strike. No, don't strike. Don't strike. It'll cripple the economy." Oh. No, it's not, you know, like giving the army 800 billion to fucking bomb, you know, 20 countries. That's okay. That money, we can spare that. But if you go on strike where, oh my god, we're gonna lose like 2 billion a day, well, we can't afford that. You know the Pentagon has been audited, I think 5 times now, and every single audit was failed. That means they don't know where the money's going. The Pentagon is like a black fucking hole that sucks trillions of dollars, and the government doesn't even know where the money's going. I can tell you where it's going. You don't need to audit the Pentagon. I can tell you, me, Richard Medhurst, that money is going towards drug deals, towards arms sales, towards arms purchases, towards CIA fucking budgets and embassy coffee. That's where that shit is going, man. That shit is going to the spooks. That shit's going to the bombers. That shit's going to the paramilitaries. That's where it's going. You don't need to scratch your head. That's where it's going. And apparently that's an acceptable loss. That's an acceptable use of American dollars and taxpayer dollars. But, you know, going on strike, oh, that's too much of an inconvenience. That's the fucking point, man.